You are listening to an entertainment program put together by a company called Financial Ineptitude. Anything said on this show is not an endorsement or professional advice. Would you really want to tell a court of law you were suing us because you thought taking financial advice from two idiots on a podcast put out by Financial Ineptitude was a good idea? Really? Clown hat, smiley face.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the China Shop. We got another crazy, awesome, exciting guest episode for you today. I'm Shopkeeper Dan. With me, as always, is Kyle, creator of FinancialIneptitude.com. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing okay. I'm regretting buying lottery tickets on NVIDIA earnings, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Oh, yeah, that happened today.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Did not do well. Who's our guest today?
You know earnings are a lottery. We got a great guest today lined up. We've got with us here in the shop, Gordon Stein, personal finance speaker and author of the Cashflow Cookbook. How are you doing today, Gordon?
Hey, just doing great. Good to be here in the China Shop.
Yeah.
Try not to smash anything, or do.
Yeah, you smash it up. It's fine.
Gordon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How'd you get so interested in personal finance?
Well, my background's engineering and an MBA, and spent a lot of years in high-tech companies, sales, marketing, operations executive. But I've always been interested in personal finance and wealth building. And I've had a lot of younger people in large teams reporting to me. And very often, at lunchtime, they say, hey, how do you build wealth? How do you get ahead? What do I do with my paycheck? How do I invest? All of these things. Mm-hmm. And then I had this crazy event that happened. I stumbled on an idea of how to get car washes for free.
Oh, really?
And it's kind of a nifty thing, not that it was really saving a lot of money. And then I found a way to slash my home alarm monitoring costs. So, all told $50, not a big deal. But it just struck me how easy it was. And that led to this 2-year obsession to find the rest of the best personal finance hacks. So that's what I did. Found ways to save $13,000 monthly, reducing monthly bills by that amount.
Wow. I don't even make that much a month.
Yeah.
That's my other book.
Oh, is it?
Right.
How to make enough so you can save enough.
Right.
Right.
I'm looking through your website, the cashflowcookbook.com, and I love the way that you have it structured. It makes it kind of fun. Like you're thinking of it in a completely different way, in a way that's more palatable and easier to digest. And then the bite-sized breaking things up, like you were saying, that you've got tips on everything from thermostats to light bulbs to the speed passes, eye care. I'd love to save money on my eyeglasses. I probably will be using this one in the future. The wool dryer balls. How'd you figure that out, by the way?
Sorry, how did I figure out what?
Wool dryer balls? I never even heard of that.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I stumbled into it on Amazon. Normally you buy these dryer sheets and you got to buy them forever. And then on Amazon, I found these, I think they're Australian. They're little wool dryer balls. You buy them once and you throw them in the dryer with your clothes and it gets rid of the static, but you don't have to keep buying things every month. Mm-hmm. Not that that's going to save a fortune, but lots of the other ideas are really quite dramatic. You can save hundreds of dollars a month. I would say typical reader of the book would save somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a month. But the key is minimal effort, minimal sacrifice.
Yeah, no clipping coupons.
Well, none of that. No, you make me laugh with that. When you see these people with their ideas on money saving, there's a book that came out, and some of the ideas were just preposterous. Make your own cleaning supplies.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't want to make my own cleaning supplies. Or, put tinfoil on your windows to reduce your air conditioning costs. I don't know how you see outside. Mm-hmm. Or, you're going to drive around 5 grocery stores. That stuff is just nonsense to me.
That also gets the police after you because it looks like a meth lab.
That's exactly. So one of the ideas to easily free up this cash flow without all this hassle. So that interested me and pulled the book together and take a look at, you apply these savings to incremental investment and the results are just dramatic. You can just accelerate your wealth.
So how did you put all this together then? Like what resources did you use to even find all this stuff?
Well, it was about 2 years of research. I had people making contributions to my blog. I did a lot of online research, a lot of canvassing of people who've done well financially. And it started as a list of these ideas. And then I put them into a spreadsheet with, what would be a low and a high monthly savings. Then I looked at the future values. So if you invested these monthly savings at 7% over 10, 20, 30 years. What would that add up to?
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers were just astronomical. So I took the whole thing to my accountant and I said, hey, where's the math errors in this thing? He went through. He said, you know what? Your math is fine. He said, this will make a great book. And so then I had a bunch of character ideas and I had a bit of a plot line pulled together and I tried to write it. It just didn't fit. It didn't fit as a novel. And under my breath one day, I said, Jesus, it's more like a cookbook. I thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly what it is. It's a Cashflow Cookbook. So I wrote the book originally as a Canadian book, Canadian edition, and then it became a newspaper column in the Toronto Star, and that led to a lot of speaking engagements, and I literally just finished the U.S. edition. It should be out within a week on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm speaking on the book across Canada and the U.S.
What sort of things do you speak about?
Well, I typically start by talking about the state of personal finance in the country that I'm speaking in. And in both Canada and the U.S., it really is shockingly bad. Here in the U.S., 64% of Americans will retire with less than $10,000.
Really?
And it's really shocking. And the average wealth at retirement in both countries is about $200,000.
I didn't realize Canada was that far behind.
They are, as well.
I know the U.S. carries a lot of credit card debt and has trouble savings, but
very similar in both countries. So it's a big opportunity there. And, using a handful of the ideas in the book, the average person could double or triple those numbers easily. So I just think it's a big opportunity. I'm very passionate about helping people with their financial wellness.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What do you find that the biggest obstacles are to overcome for people that need to get their financial state repaired?
Yeah, I would say the television. It probably takes about 10 hours to implement, a handful of these key recipes from the book. And most people just feel they don't have the time, which to me is shocking because, if you take 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour, and you free up $100, $200, $300 a month, that goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And people say they don't have the time to do that. And it's really shocking. I think you have the time. The average Canadian American watches about 20 hours of TV a week. So if you can just give up a few episodes to add $1 million to your wealth at retirement, I think that's a good idea.
And only once too, right? But I don't know. It's hard not to watch that Letterkenny and some of the other great programming they have. Didn't they have Red Green Show? Was that theirs?
Red Green. Haven't heard that one in a while, man.
Oh, that's such a good show.
Look, I need my shows to distract me from how poor I am. I don't have time to save money and not be poor.
I assume that you also covered the cable costs, like how to cut cable costs. That's one of the ones that I see a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and sometimes people focus on the wrong things. Some are pretty obvious, like there's, things that you can shop. And there's so many tools out there now to quickly shop car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's things that you can conserve on. Your electricity bill, gas bill, there's some easy hacks to improve all of those numbers. But what's really interesting is then there's the disruptive kinds of things like switching to YouTube TV as an example instead of cable. It's something you talked about. And then there's a number that are just kind of stealthy. Credit score is a really interesting one where most people don't know their credit score, but those reports are often riddled with errors. And your credit score swing your total interest cost on a loan by 70%.
Whoa.
And it can swing the cost of your car and home insurance by 30 to 50%. So you have all these people, they're blindly moving along. They get car insurance, they get a price, they take the price away they go, and you can have a pair of twins, one with a great credit score, one with a poor credit score, buy the identical car on the identical day.
Mm-hmm.
And one ends up 70% more in interest because they didn't know their credit score. And maybe it was just an error in their credit score that gave them the poor score in the first place. Could have been fixed.
Man, that's crazy. What are some of the other bigger ticket items?
Well, there's a whole bunch that are interesting. And when I did the research, some were pretty surprising. An interesting one was clothing. And when I do talks in person, as soon as I start talking about clothing, you can see a lot of people in the audience, they kind of recoil. I like having nice clothes. Don't take my clothes away.
I never got that personally.
Not me. I go into Goodwill and it's like, where are the blue tags at? I'm saving some money today.
So the stat that really came up a lot in the research is that we only ever wear 20% of the clothing that we buy.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, until you look at, a Marie Kondo show on Netflix, and she's hauling all these garbage bags of clothing out of people's houses.
Yeah.
And, I think those bags have got to be $1,000 each.
Right.
So if we shop a little bit more mindfully, you could actually double your wardrobe of great clothes, but cut in half your total cost of clothing spend by just getting a little bit more mindful and focusing on getting the right quality item. So that was kind of an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
The credit score one was probably the most surprising, just how big that impact is and how hidden it is. There's also a lot of hidden expenses in investment fees.
Right.
Because it tends not to be as visible. People don't take a look at, where that money is going. And maybe they're spending a lot on, perhaps expensive mutual funds, but still not getting the performance that could be benchmarked against the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another area that can be a bit surprising. But most of these things, if you went through and read Cashflow Cookbook, you went through it cover to cover, a lot of people would look at a given recipe and they'd say, geez, that I'm already doing that, or gee, that doesn't apply to me, and that's no problem. All you need to do is find 4, 5, 6 recipes in there out of the 60, each one saving, let's say, $200. There's $1,200 a month of incremental investment, or maybe you're going to pay down debt with it. So it's kind of book one of personal finance. It's a great way to really see are your expenses in check. And the whole premise is minimal effort, minimal sacrifice, not about giving up things that you love. It's about reducing all those other bills to free up cash for what's important to you.
So say we get the book, we go through, we find a way to free up, like you said, about $1,200 a month in extra, cash.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do with it then?
Well, there's lots of cooking puns. So I talk about broiling a bill. So you want to broil all of these.
I wish we could do that with bills.
And then once you broil a bill, I talk about savor the savings. So, rather than just, reducing the cost of, let's say, your car insurance or whatever it is, and leave it sloshing around in your checking account, you're going to have a spouse who's going to spend that money, or maybe it goes to your kids, or maybe you spend the money. So better is right away you commit it to something meaningful. So maybe you're going to up your car loan payment, or maybe you're going to increase your contributions to your 401k or your Roth IRA, or get it locked into your company share purchase plan, something like that. So put it to a good purpose right away. You didn't have the money before, and better that money is helping you than going to, let's say, the car insurance company or the cell phone company.
That's something that I've always tried to preach to people. Well, nobody really listens to me though, but like anytime you get a raise, like you don't expect the raise, you've been living without it. Just put that into your savings until you can get your savings rate up into a point where you're comfortable with it. That's
it, exactly. I call that lifestyle inflation. There's actually a recipe in the book on that.
Oh, really?
And that's a really powerful way to start to build wealth. You get a raise of whatever it might be. You get a 6% raise. Right off the bat, you want to allocate some portion of that to increasing your investment. Otherwise, it'll just get gone, and that lifestyle will just keep creeping up.
Keeping up with the Joneses is, I think that's probably one of the more expensive. It's one of the more expensive things that people have to deal with. Your neighbor gets a nice new lawnmower, and then suddenly you're looking at your old one, and it doesn't look as good anymore now. Now you got to get one to keep up.
Yeah, I don't know if lawnmowers are maybe the most exciting example, but there's something there's something in what you're saying for sure.
I'm only speaking from experience. I was talking to my neighbor about mowing my lawn. He was looking at mine and was like, I need a new one.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, life imitating. No, wait, that's not the right pun. Never mind.
Art imitating life,
I suppose. That kind of fits, right? That's close enough.
That's what art is, Kyle.
Mowing your lawn.
Mowing your lawn. Yeah.
Do I see that you do some work too with students?
Yeah, I've done some speaking to student groups, colleges, and universities. I had a really interesting one recently. One of my wealth advisor clients, I spoke to all of his clients to help them free up more cash flow for investing. I do a lot of that sort of thing. And it turns out he's a Boy Scout leader. Mm-hmm. And he was chatting about his Boy Scout troop. And I said, hey, what about doing a financial wellness talk for them? Because I like to do a few every year that are, kind of pro bono, helping people out. Mm-hmm. So we said, yeah, great. Why don't you do that to the troop? So we group of 11 to 17-year-olds. And my wife said to me, she said, make sure you go really slowly. They're 11 to 17 years old. Like, don't be flying over their heads. So I kind of regrouped my talk a little bit. And, they were all there in their troop uniforms and a bunch of dads who were the, troop leaders and whatnot. And it was just a great night. We were, I don't know where we were, in a church basement somewhere. And so I'm going through this. I'm being really careful not to go too fast. Well, we come to the Q&A, and the first kid puts his hand up and says, well, what are your thoughts on cryptocurrency? I'm thinking about Ethereum, versus Dogecoin, and he gets into all this stuff. And then the next kid says, what about art NFTs? Do you think they're a good investment, or should I be looking elsewhere? These are kids 11 to 17. And then somebody else says, about the efficient market frontier. Do you believe that, or do you think there's a better way to invest in that? I'm just going, oh my heavens. And my wife was there with me. I said afterwards, did I go slowly enough for them, do you think? It was just so funny, but it gave me a lot of hope for the future. These gentlemen right into it. It was really remarkable, and just a fabulous night to help them. And, in general, the level of financial literacy in both Canada and the US, it's really shocking. We've just not done enough in the schools to help people. Mm-hmm. And when you look at stats, 50% of the calls to employee assistance programs are about money. People stressing about their money. 41% of divorces, couples cited financial stress as the number one issue in the marriage. Mm-hmm. So it's affecting our workplace. It affects relationships, certainly from a mental health perspective, stress and depression. Just remarkable what happens when people get stressed about their money. And it just doesn't have to be that way. There's lots of things that people can do to improve their financial situation. Minimal effort, minimal sacrifice. That's the whole idea behind Cashflow Cookbook.
I love it.
Minimal sacrifice is what you need to sell it.
Yeah, right.
I like the minimal effort part. I like the idea of being able to make some small changes and actually be able to see results immediately and forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exactly. You make these changes because it's on these recurring bills, and if the idea of paying too much on an electricity bill just makes me crazy. But then if, I went to see the Eagles recently, I want great seats to see the Eagles.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay too much for my gas bill, my cell bill, my car insurance. All of those things need to be ground rate down. Still getting, good quality, good coverage, all of those things. There's always a better way. Every bill can be reduced.
Right. So which Eagles was that? Was that the band or the football team?
Oh, the band.
Okay, good.
Oh, there's only one. Good one. You're thinking about the Browns.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry if you're a Browns fan.
This will be the year, by the way.
Wow.
Only if Watson actually gets to play.
Let's see what will happen there.
I know, right?
All right. Next up on Money Talking Sports.
Oh, do you know Watson? No, I'm just kidding. I was looking through your blog, and there was something that popped up on there. I'm trying to find it real quick so I can ask you about it.
Yeah.
I think you had talked about in your bio or somewhere about how to stop stressing about money. I was curious about what your tips on that were.
Just about stressing about money in general?
Yeah.
Well, I think, one is spend less time staring at the stock prices. That'll literally make you crazy.
Whoa. I'm feeling attacked.
I think one of the big ones is I like getting people to track their wealth, what they own minus what they owe. A lot of people focus on monthly budgeting. Mm-hmm. And, particularly in the case of couples, when you say to your spouse, hey, let's do some, detailed budgeting this weekend.
Sexy.
It doesn't land well often.
No, not usually.
And if you move from that, if you set a budget, let's say you say, okay, we're going to spend $600 or less on a car payment. If you go to the car dealer and say, our budget is $600, well, he's going to get you into a Porsche Turbo on a 200-month loan or something.
Right.
You're still making your budget, but you're really not doing your wealth any favors. So I think wealth is, it kind of tells you the truth about where you're at. If you want to lose weight, you got to look at your weight. If you want to build wealth, you have to look at your wealth. And most people have no idea. So just making a simple schedule, on a cocktail napkin, a piece of paper, an Excel spreadsheet, or you can go to the utilities section of cashflowcookbook.com, download a free template, and just set this thing up. What do you own? You've got a car, you've got houses or whatever. And then what do you owe? You've got credit cards, you've got mortgages, all of these things. And you just look at the difference and just track that. I think it's really worthwhile to track that every month for a year, then go to quarterly or yearly after that. But then you really start to feel differently about your money. You realize that, hey, we're on a good path. Some people are actually negative. Maybe you get out of school, you got some student loans, whatever the case may be, or you got a lot of debt. But is it moving in a good direction month after month? I think when you do that, that dramatically lowers your stress, because then you start to get a picture and you say, okay, I'm actually improving our wealth. And if you have that wealth, it gives you opportunities. Maybe you want to take a year off, you want to retire early, you want to switch careers, you want to join the family business, build a school in Nepal, whatever it is. But when you have wealth, you've got some options, you've got some choices. And I think that is where you get de-stressed about your monny.
And then what about budgeting then?
Well, I think you can do the budgeting. I like a slightly different approach. I talk about beautifying your banking. And so a real simple change for people to make is often, particularly with couples, they'll have one big joint checking account and the two paychecks go in there and everything comes out. And you never know where you are. There's recurring bills coming out. You go for dinner out and then things get overdrawn and then you forgot about the mortgage payment or the taxes, whatever. I think a better way to set it up is you have two bank accounts, one that pays all those recurring bills and the other that's more the monthly discretionary, the dinners out, the groceries, etc. So much easier to keep track of it. And then if you go back to that account that's paying the bills, you want to go through bill by bill, use all the techniques in Cashflow Cookbook to reduce all of those bills. As you free up that's going to go into your savings. Roth IRA, 401k, company share purchase plan, whatever it is. And so now it's much, much simpler. And then the whole notion of budgeting, all of those bills are what they are. You're going to grind them down. You're going to free up those savings. And then over in your sort of regular checking account, that's more the discretionary things. And once you've gone through the recurring bills, then you can sort of shift your attention and look for ways to, reduce the cost of vacations and groceries and those sort of day-to-day things. I think it's simpler and cleaner than trying to set a budget. Inevitably, one category is going to go over. The dishwasher breaks, wasn't in the budget. Kid loses a whole bag of hockey gear. Oops, wasn't in the budget. So it feels a bit futile to me. But if you're tracking your wealth and you set up your accounts in that way, I think it's a simpler way to manage your money.
I feel like kids should be their own line item.
Or a few line items.
Yeah, most of the line items.
Yeah,
I think we just had one of our kids just moved out, and I think our food bill got cut in half as soon as she left.
Oh wow!
How is that possible? Because it's not like we only sit around and eat, craft dinner and hot dogs.
Yeah,
we still like to eat, decent. Just you never realize how much a teenager eats.
Yeah, they do for sure. It's right when they're launched.
Right. 18 years of debt. There's some benefits. There are some benefits.
Never turns into an asset, always a liability.
Well, yeah, I think the goal is to have them take care of you when you're no longer able to function as an adult.
That's the dream.
That's the plan.
Yeah, don't count on that.
Okay, I know. If you're stuck in a home, it's either that or you hope that they make it as a musician, rock star, or professional athlete.
Right.
One or the other.
Lotto ticket on your kids.
All right. That's why you have as many as you can.
Yeah, there you go.
Increase your odds.
Good Lord. We are off the rails, sir.
A little bit. Let's talk about credit card debt a little bit, because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially with the lockdowns and everything else that's been going on.
Yeah.
What's the best way to try to pay that out or get yourself out of debt when you find yourself, suddenly on the wrong side of that?
Yeah, it's a big one. And, it just keeps going and going, like all this sort of micro payments now. Just about everything you buy online, there's always an option. Oh, do you want to just, pay for that at only, $7 a week instead of actually paying for it?
Right.
So the marketers keep getting sharper and sharper. And, they build up this emotion where, you just have to have these things, and then they look cheaper on payments. And it's an endless battle against the consumer. And, we don't get any more sophisticated as consumers, but the marketers keep getting more and more sophisticated, and credit is just the tool of choice. So, I think one of the best things is to really goes back to that wealth chart, because then you're going to start to see that debt in there. And if you take a look at, what are you paying in interest on these cards, it's really remarkable. Even if you're just floating, say, $3,000, a lot of people, not paying cards off every month, that is one of the first things you really want to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, I don't have the cash flow to pay off the card. Well, obviously you can slow down spending. But the other thing is you can free up money in all these other areas that we're talking about and use that to pay down the cards. So I think there's no easy way to do it, but you really have to have the discipline. Often people are spending on their cards. They're sort of chasing these points on the cards. And one of the first things to do is take a look at, a quick bit of math. I mean, typically a card will pay out something like 1.5% or 1.75% as a reward. And if you just take a minute, go back and take a look at your spending for the year. And first of all, did you get enough rewards to cover the cost of the card if the card has a annual fee? And most people don't even do that piece of math. They get all excited. They're going to be going to Bermuda every week. And in fact, they don't have enough spending to do that. And sends them to use the card. And then this interest is just absolutely toxic. And just to, take an example of it, credit card interest, easily 24% right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were in a 50% marginal tax bracket, that's the equivalent of the opposite of a 48% government bond, if you think about it. It's a sure thing. There's zero risk. You have to pay the money back, right? Think of the debt as being the opposite of an investment. And you have to pay it out of your after-tax money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make $1 and, after the taxes come out, for argument's sake, you end up with 50 cents, you're not paying the debt out of the dollar. You're paying it out of the 50 cents at a 24% interest rate. So there is no move you can make in anything you want to do in your finances that's better and more beneficial for your wealth than paying off your credit cards. That's absolutely number one.
Number two?
Well, number two, I think, is freeing up cash like we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, they tie in together. So as you free up the cash, you've got money to pay down the debt. Usually people say, hey, do I pay down my debt or do I, try and increase my investment? And that you'd have to look at carefully because you have to look at your tax rate and you have to look at, what kind of expected returns you're going to get. But I could tell you without looking at anything, if you're carrying that credit card debt, you want to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's very rare you're going to find something that's going to return you reliably more than 24%.
That's the key right there. After tax, return you 24% after tax. Mm-hmm. That's the key. So, I would say the order of operations, most personal finance books, they start off by saying, well, you want to save 10% of your gross income, then you want to invest that in real estate or stocks and bonds or whatever. But they miss the part before that. Where do you get the 10%?
Right.
And it's interesting, if I talk to people earning $50,000 a year, they say, geez, yeah, I don't have the 10% for anything because we're just too tight in the budget. What's interesting is when I talk to people making $500,000 a year, they say, yeah, no, I just don't have the 10% because we're just too tight on the budget. So it happens at all income levels. So freeing up that cash, I think, is just critical. It's really about rewiring your brain. People get so excited about things and this sort of endorphin rush of buying a new thing. But if you follow the emotion all the way through, that endorphin rush runs, probably drops in half by the time you get the thing home.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the credit card bill comes, it actually spins to negative. You're saying, what was I doing? What was I thinking? Why did I do that? If people could just rerun that movie in their head, and maybe it might save them the next purchase.
Yeah.
And that's why the whole idea of tracking your wealth is so important, because then you switch this gamification where you start to get excited about the freedom you're going to have and the ability to, do different things in your life. Maybe, get to your higher purpose if you have one, other than a purpose of just paying the bills every month and trying to get out of all this. So I think that's where the transformation happens.
I've always been of the mindset of paying cash for any large purchases. So that means if I don't have the cash to pay for it, I have to save for it. And a lot of times what ends up happening is after I've saved for it, I decide I don't really want it that much anymore.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the money in my bank account to go do something else with.
Right.
Yeah, the cooling off period, I think, is a really good idea. And, it comes back to this business. The marketers just get so savvy and they get us so worked up about these things. At the end of the day, you know what? They're really just things, and they don't really give you lasting pleasure. Mm-hmm. If you compare it with, a hobby or an interest or something you're excited about, or, being outdoors or spending some great time with your family or kids or friends or whatever.
Or away from them.
Right. Yes, depending. Well, I love that saying, friends are God's way of apologizing for giving your relatives.
Nice.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's the thing on that credit card debt.
I wanted to ask you too about emergency funds, and if you covered that in any of your topics. Like, what do you prioritize over when you're dealing with debt and you don't have an emergency fund? Which one is more important to try to solve first?
Yeah, I mean they're both really important. I mean, some of the financial writers will say the first thing you do is you want to establish that emergency fund, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's pretty good advice. If you look at the percentage of Americans who can handle even a $400 kind of shock to the system, it's really low. Most people have a hard time with even a $400 thing. So hence the value of the emergency fund. I just don't know if it's the best place to start because it's really not that rewarding. Let's think about this emotionally. You carefully squirrel away a bunch of money and you've got your $1,000 emergency fund. Well, that's not that inspiring. That's why I like to start with broiling a bill. You go after a bill and you free up some money with it. It takes you 15 or 20 minutes and suddenly you've got another, let's say $200 a month. Now, a good use for that, depending on your situation, might be to set up your emergency fund so you don't have to go into debt when the dishwasher breaks. So I think it's a good idea. I would just start with this idea of, broiling a bill first. Then you might want to use it for that. Now, I would say too, though, if you're swimming in credit card debt, I don't know if the emergency fund is actually your biggest priority. I might be inclined to, pay off that credit card debt because it's accelerating or it's decelerating your wealth the whole time. If you can pay that debt off, you're freeing up that interest, and then you can really start to save an emergency account or whatever your other wealth goal is.
Yeah, I've always wondered if keeping a 6-month emergency fund is really the thing you want to do when you've got $20,000 worth of debt on cards. Like, what good is making minimum payments just so you can put money in a bank account that's not doing anything? If you shrink that fund down a little bit and put it towards some of that debt, because you can always just go back to the credit card if the emergency happens.
Well, I mean, if you're floating $20,000 of credit card debt, that could be $400 or $500 a month in interest.
Right.
So, are you really going to set your money aside in an emergency fund when you're paying out $400 or $500 a month in interest? I think your priority in that case is you got to get that card paid off.
I would agree with that too. What are some of the other? You do a lot of these speaking engagements. What are some of the common questions that people come to you with?
Well, I'm often surprised by some of the questions. People ask me things like, "Is it better to put money into 401k or into stocks?" And in many cases, I'm surprised, and it really highlights the need for more financial education. Because, of course, a 401k is like a container; it's a place where you can hold things like stocks. It's not a 401k or stocks kind of a thing. So, that comes up a fair bit. A lot of people say, "Hey, I'm really late in the cycle. I'm late getting ready for retirement. I'm now 50 or I'm 55 years old. I've really not saved much, if anything. What do I do now?" That one comes up quite a bit. And, I think all situations are salvageable. They say, is it too late to start saving? Well, the best time is when you're 12, and the second best time is right now. So there's no time to be wasting. But pretty much every situation can be salvaged. I had a gentleman who reached out to me. He heard me speak somewhere. He was from Kansas. And, he said, look, here I sit. I'm 50 years old. Making about $100,000 a year, and he hadn't saved anything for his retirement. And he felt that he was right to the wall on his budget. So I just said, hey, why don't you send me your budget, where you're spending your money? So we went through, we identified a handful of things. He freed up about $500 a month. Again, minimal effort, minimal sacrifice, just using ideas from the book. And, he started investing that. He put that into he had a matching 401k at his company, and he hadn't contributed to it. So here you have this terrific opportunity where your company's actually going to contribute. He didn't take that free money because he didn't have the cash flow. So we freed up the cash flow, got into this contributory 401k, and he was on track to retire with about $500,000.
Wow.
Now, that's not a plush retirement, but it's a whole lot better than nothing.
Yeah, especially if the average was, what did you say, 10,000?
Well, the average is about 200,000.
I guess it depends on which average you're using, right? Because you probably have a bunch of people with millions, and then you have the rest that are sitting around 20, 30.
Yeah, you have to look at the median,
yes,
versus the you're going to get a very different number. But I think I mentioned before, 64% of Americans retire with less than $10,000.
Yeah.
And that was the fate that this gentleman was headed for. We did some really simple things. We reshopped his car insurance, I think his cell coverage. I think he did have errors in his credit report. So we got all of that fixed up. And then that eventually, he was able to use that to lower his loan costs. So it was all these kinds of stealthy things. We didn't really change his, he could still go out for his coffee. He could, go for lunch, whatever he wanted to do. But it made a big, big difference. And talk about change in his level of financial stress. Mm-hmm. Just dramatic and also easy to do.
The minimal effort thing that you get, because I think that's what stops a lot of people from even starting, is because they have this picture of themselves sitting over the Sunday paper, clipping coupons and not being able to go out to dinner ever, just having to live life like a prisoner in your own house. That's not necessarily the case.
And sometimes, you look at some of these things and they really can be dramatic. I mean, one of the ones that's interesting is this idea of bringing your own lunch. Now, a lot of people turn their nose up. I'm not going to start, packing lunches and all that. But, the savings on that, easily $12 a day. And that's just versus, kind of a fast food lunch. So, 20 working days in a month, let's call that $200 pretty easily.
Yep.
So a young person starting off in their career and look at the future value over 40 years, 7%, that adds up to more than $500,000 just by packing their own lunch. Oof. And even if they only did it half the time, that would add $250,000 to their wealth. So it might be something where you may look at it and you might say, wow, I didn't realize it was that high. There was an interesting situation where I worked with a woman and she was a project manager. And so we had a big project we were working on together, and she would be at this meeting and she'd bring this big, Starbucks latte, one of the Vendée Grande, whatever they are, probably, $6 worth or something. And then there was a second project and the meetings were at 11 o'clock and she'd bring another one of these coffees to the other project.
Wow.
And then I walked by her desk and I started noticing she'd have, a can of soda and a bag of chips in the afternoon. And then I thought, geez, she's actually doing this every day. And I did the math out of curiosity, $330 a month. And I was telling the story to a friend of mine who has a Honda dealership. And he said, give me your number. So what do you mean, give me your number? He said, I could get her into a Civic. He was all keen to lease her a car with the money that she was spending on her coffee and chips. And the crazy thing is that the company in the lunchroom was a Starbucks coffee machine. And the whole premise is it makes coffee as good as the coffee at Starbucks. And it was free. And so that was the coffee that I was drinking. And there's this woman spending $330 a month on coffee and snacks. And I'm sure she, going home struggling to make ends meet, all of these kinds of things. And people just don't have the awareness of just a different way of doing something and just adding up some of these things in their life and just seeing the impact. Because maybe they want to go ahead and stay with their coffee and snacks or whatever. But at least understand what the cost is and how much that would change in your wealth.
Right. That is incredible. It is incredible just how these little things just add. I think you mentioned micro purchases. I think there's a whole South Park episode on people playing those cell phone games and going underwater just from 50 cents here, $1 there, and then next thing you know, you don't realize how much those things add up.
Oh yeah,
just building some awareness. I think it really changes things when you have the awareness.
I did see one of your blogs last year was talking about dividend stocks and inflation. Do you do you invest in the market and have strategies in the cookbook?
Yeah, of course I do. Well, I don't in Cashflow Cookbook. I don't talk that much about investing, but I think I'm an advocate for most people of having a wealth advisor. I think the emotional part is just too difficult. If you look what happened a couple of years ago when COVID hit and the markets plunged by 30%, it takes a pretty steady hand to not say, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose everything. I've got to get out. And then, of course, we all know what happened. And then the markets came roaring back and you would have missed that ride back up again. Mm-hmm. So I think for most people, particularly once you have a bit of wealth together, having a wealth advisor is a good idea. I will say, though, I am a fan of dividend stocks. I'll just give you one example. And this is by no means to be taken as financial advice. Consult your advisor and all that.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. That's our whole show.
Yes.
Well, then we're on the same page. But, it's interesting. Prior to this big mess, I invested in something called ABM. And they're one of these dividend kings, 40 years of uninterrupted dividends. And they do really mundane services for companies. They do all kinds of, custodial kinds of things and, just different operational kinds of services for companies. Anyway, I think I bought it before this big mess for around, $45. And it's got a yield, not a huge yield, about 1.672%. So it's a long-time dividend payer, and they very reliably increase their dividends every year. And through this whole mess where things, plunged dramatically, it's now trading at, $47. Like literally nothing happened. It just keeps plugging along. And so many of these dividend payers are like that. I bought some Lockheed Martin a while ago, figuring, the world's not becoming less dangerous. That turned out to be prescient. But, they're selling to the government. How can you miss, right?
Yeah.
Long-term dividend payer, again, paying 2.6% yield or so, a reasonable price earnings of 19.8. And, there's a guaranteed market for what they have. We're not going to need fewer drones and fighter jets and all those kinds of things. Even you take another example, people get excited about things like Altria, tobacco. And they're morphing their business. But you know what? It just keeps on going, keeps paying out the dividends.
6%.
Hey.
Actually, 6.8 now. Jeez.
I've got some Sunoco, yielding 8%. Fabulous. We're going to be in, petrochemicals for quite a while. We will move off them, which is a good thing. But in the short term, it's what the country runs on.
And plus chemical or plastics. You need oil to make plastic. That's something a lot of people just think about the gasoline. Like there's a lot more things that oil gets used for than just gas.
Yeah. Right. It's, and I'm all about clean energy, and that's fantastic. But, for now, this is going to be here for, for a period of years for sure. It's not going away overnight. Or even things like pharmaceutical companies, AbbVie. There's another one that's done really well. So, what are these things that are kind of on trend, that are established blue chip companies, paying good dividends, long histories of rising dividends? I think those are great investments through thick and thin. I'm a fan.
I would agree with that, especially when you don't have to think about it. Who was the person who came up with the idea of using dividends to pay your bills? God, who was that?
Marvin was talking to us about that.
Who was that? Marvin?
That was Marvin. That's the thing he does. Yeah.
Where he would basically invest in his utility company, and then once he got the dividends up high enough from the return on his investment, he would just use that to pay his bill.
Yeah, I did a blog post on something like that. People are always complaining about the price of iPhones. I'm a big Apple fan. iPhones, oh my goodness, they're so expensive. And I see people just buy the stock.
Right.
And if you would have bought some Apple stock, I don't know how long ago I started buying it, 20 years ago or something.
Pick a day.
Last year.
It goes up and down like anything else. But over the long haul, if you had yourself, I don't know, $10,000 of Apple stock, $20,000, you'll quickly get to a place where you can buy a new iPhone every year, take that out of your Apple stock, and it'll just continue on growing. So, why worry about the price? But get on board with these companies. People are fussing about, the prices of things. Well, be an investor, be an owner. And then, you're less fussed about it. If the price of iPhones go up, I cheer.
Right.
It's helping my Apple stock.
Right.
Changes your attitude, I think.
Yeah, I could see that.
What are you guys investing in now?
Investing, we're more trying to trade.
Okay.
So we look for shorter term swings, market movements. I've been focusing on futures lately. Dan, you've been trading indexes like the SPY and the Qs.
Yep.
I do have some long-term holdings. I have things like Salesforce, Altrera, like you mentioned, some stuff like that in my long-term portfolio, but those I don't really touch. Yeah,
I think there's, there's a lot of, I'm always interested in some of these longer-term trends, like the metaverse to me is quite interesting. And, there's so many plays on that. If you're going to metaverse, you're going to need cloud. So if you want a cloud, you're going to buy it from either Amazon or Microsoft.
Right.
So, I hold Amazon and Microsoft because either way I view it as if you want cloud, you got to come see me.
Yep.
Right? It's like this bridge keeper ocean.
Yep.
Some of these, and things that are utilities in both the literal sense of the word, gas, electric companies, those kinds of things, guaranteed markets, or ones that are utilities in the technology world. I don't know, which cloud company, I don't know which SaaS company is going to win. I just know they need cloud.
Right.
And they need a data center and all of these kinds of things. So I like that sort of bridge keeper philosophy. I think that's a really powerful one in investing.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
In that case, too, I'd be looking more for probably a sector or an ETF that would be in that rather than trying to pick a single stock, because a lot of people that ask you the questions, they don't have the time to actually dedicate to learning about all these different companies. So just buy a sector fund and not even worry about it.
You can do it that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Or some of the infrastructure things like Brookfield, where they own the dams and the bridges and the toll roads and all of those kinds of things. And you just sit back, you don't care who wins and who loses.
Right.
It's that bridge keeper idea. You've got to cross the bridge, or you're selling bullets in war. It doesn't matter which side wins. You're the bullet salesperson.
Except with better ethics, hopefully.
we like the analogy, you're the guy selling the pickaxe during the gold rush.
Yes,
right.
That.
Yeah, that's an even better one. That's I think where it all began.
Most of the miners didn't make any money, but the shopkeepers, boy, they sell the pickaxe to the guy who shows up wanting to go make a fortune, and when he busts out, he'd buy the pickaxe back for half price and sell it to the next guy.
Right.
Well, it's funny. I was out west. We were heading out to do some tree planting in my college days, and we're sort of camping on the way out there to do our tree planting. And we ran into these guys, and they're at this stream, and they've got these pans. And I said, "Jeff, they're panning for gold." So we go chat them up about it. They explain the process. Anyway, 10 minutes later, we had all 4 hubcaps off our van, and we're out there, and the guy told us that the gold would kind of look like little black specks. So we panned for a while, then I went back to him. I said, "Hey, how do you know what's gold and what's just like little black specks?" And he says, "Well, you really don't." So anyway, it didn't. We didn't make any money, but it was a fun experience.
Oh, I do watch some people who do the gold panning on YouTube just because I think it's fun. But they don't really ever have much. It's always just for fun.
Right.
I'm your voice of confidence, and let's start our business.
Well, I'm self-doubt, and I don't think so.
Come on. With LegalZoom, it's just a few steps.
Fine, I'm in.
LegalZoom. Now you're in business.
LegalZoom is not a law firm or a substitute for an attorney.
If you look around, there are so many ways to make a difference. At Capella University, our FlexPath format gives you a different way to earn your degree. Take courses at your speed. Move on whenever you're ready. Education should fit your life. Learn more at capella.edu.
Going out there getting rich anymore these days, unless you have like excavators and you can really move some material.
You're right.
So if you want to save money, don't pan for gold. Unless it's stopping you from charging things on your credit card. In that case, it probably is a good hobby.
You should, however, open a panning for gold service center and sell pans to people to pan for gold. That's how you'll make your money.
Hubcaps.
Hubcaps.
I'm curious, how well did the hubcap work?
Well, they don't sell for much as hubcaps, but as gold pans, you could probably up the price a bit.
Yeah.
Did the hubcap do the job pretty well?
Did it do the job in the gold pan?
How did it work? Was it good?
Well, let's just say that I don't know that the hubcaps were the issue. It could have been. It could have been not knowing anything about what we were doing. May have been part of the issue.
Not knowing how to pan for gold might have been more at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm really lazy. I'd want to just hang a big magnet over in the stream and just check it every couple of weeks.
Except gold's not magnetic.
Not.
All you get is iron.
Don't tell them that. You're going to upset them.
If you want to mine for iron, that'd be the way to do it.
There goes all my gold dreams. Thank you, Kyle.
Actually, you need a special magnet, Dan. Let me check the shop. I think I might have what you need.
You might have a special magnet for sale? Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Special gold magnet.
Thank you. Does it come with its own tinfoil hat?
Yes, and a hubcap.
And a hubcap. It's a package deal.
But, I think it's funny. In an industry that's like that now, I'm always amazed when I drive by these self-storage places, I don't know if you see them where you guys are, but these massive things. Some of them are so beautiful. I wouldn't mind living in some of them.
I think some people do.
Well, it plays on psychology. You know, you don't want to give up your stuff because it's your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see people get divorced and they got a house full of furniture, so it won't fit in their new place. What do? They go get themselves a storage locker, $300-400 a month, and they put all this stuff in there. And they don't reason. They don't say, well, if it doesn't fit in my new house, it probably won't fit in the house after that either.
Right.
But then it's going to be, you know, a little bit rotted or mouse chewed or something, and it's going to be out of style. And meanwhile, they're paying $300 a month. They don't even put the thought into it. I'm just amazed by this. I'd rather be the owner of the self-storage business,
right,
than somebody renting, a box in there.
Yeah.
The other one is gyms. You see gym commercials like trying to get you to open up a Gold's Gym or whatever the other names are. Like that business has always baffled me. Like, oh, I'm going to pay you $20 a month to come over here and run in place when I could just run to the gym and be done.
Yeah.
Well, or I think about this, these body weight exercises,
mm-hmm.
all kinds of YouTube channels telling you what to do. And your body comes with its own gym, if you think about
it. Yeah. We just tried yoga recently, and that's no joke. That's a real workout.
Isometrics.
Oh, that's a good
no
one.
weights needed.
I tell you, an app that I'm into these days is this Bit Gym. I don't know if you guys have tried it, but it's quite clever. You put it on your iPad, and if you have a spinning bike or a treadmill, and it senses your movement, so it can tell how fast you're running through the camera. And you can be in, wherever you want to be. You can be in Belize or Austria in the rivers, or you can be, in a mountain in Tibet. They have all of these different backdrops, and it speeds up the faster you go. And it really is terrific. You see different parts of the world. You can turn on the guided tour or turn it off. I don't get any commission from these people, but I just think it's a really slick way to work out. I think it's something like $8 a month. Pretty cheap way to see the world, get your workouts in. It's a fun idea.
Cheaper than a gym.
Yeah.
Cheaper than a vacation. And healthier.
That's it, exactly.
All you need then is Uber Eats to get you the food, the local cuisine.
Right. They may have to travel a little farther than anticipated.
Oh, Gordon, this has been a lot of fun chatting with you. If you want to let the people know where they can find the book.
Yeah, sure. So Cashflow Cookbook, there's a Canadian edition up on Amazon. The U.S. edition will be up there by the 1st of June, 2022, depending on when you're listening to this. It's imminent, on its way. And it's got 60 different recipes in there for freeing up cash in every category of spend, from housing, transportation, food, household, lifestyle, and financial.
Mm-hmm. So
everything you spend money on, there's a better way to do it. And it's really minimal effort, minimal sacrifice, great way to build some financial wellness. So look on Amazon for Cashflow Cookbook, and you can also go to cashflowcookbook.com, where you'll see my blog posts, all kinds of other tools and ingredients and utensils, lots of bad cooking puns. And
right.
You can find out how to reach me. And if you're looking for a speaker, I work with wealth advisors to help their clients free up cash. I speak at conferences, colleges, universities, what have you. So love getting the word out, love helping people with their financial wealth.
Before you go, Gordon, I got to ask you, what's the difference between the Canadian and U.S. version?
About $5. Yeah. There's some differences. There's some cultural differences. There's some math differences in the way things like mortgages are calculated. And then there's difference in the financial instruments. So 401ks in the U.S. are like an RSP in Canada, as one example. And then there's a few recipes that are different as well. So, for example, you have universal health care in Canada. So there's not very nifty ways to save on healthcare deductibles, whereas that is an important thing here.
Right.
In some cases, the savings are bigger. Here in the U.S., I did a blog post on how I saved 94% on my prescription drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And you can save in Canada, you just can't save 94%. So that was a pretty remarkable one. That was $100 a month of savings. Really, really simple to do. I've got all the details.
So you're saying the U.S. is better for saving?
The U.S. is getting overcharged more, so there's more room to save.
There's more room. There's more swing on most things in the U.S. And also better comparison engines. So you can more quickly compare things like car insurance, home insurance, life insurance. There's more opportunity here, quite honestly.
Go Colorado. No, sorry. Oh, dear. Okay, Dan, you want to wrap us up before I start bashing Canada?
Absolutely.
Which is like half our listener base.
Half our listener base, yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, making it to the end. Really special, warm thank you to you, Gordon, for coming on the show. This has been a wonderful conversation. Really glad to have you.
Hey, my pleasure. Happy to come back anytime.
Thank you for the tips too, by the way. Yeah, and when you write the book on how to save or how to earn $50,000 a month, we'll definitely get you back for that one.
I'm just on the podcast rating here, giving you guys a 5. As soon as I know that, I'll start on the next book.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, folks. We'll be back at you soon with another regular episode. But until then, happy trades.
Goodbye, folks.
Two Bulls in a China Shop is an entertainment program, and all thoughts and opinions expressed in the show belong to the hosts and not of any company. They are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide entertainment about stocks in the financial industry of trading. If you make trades based on what you hear in this show, you assume all risks for those trades.